Hello, everyone. Welcome to a BookBase interview where today we talk to author and character designer Steven Silver. Steven has had a career in the entertainment industry for over 30 years, having a multitude of notable achievements, including creating iconic character designs for Disney's Kim Possible, Nickelodeon's Danny Phantom, and Disney Clark's The Animated Series. If at any point you're interested in following Steven's journey, feel free to check out his academy's website, www.silverdrawingacademy.com, and check out his Instagram at stevensilver7. Also, if you enjoyed this type of content from us, please feel free to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Steven, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And before I even get started with asking a question, I just got to give a shout out to my mom because my mom and we actually would watch Kim Possible and Danny Phantom. So I grew up with a
Nice.
lot of your work. So thank you so much. And
Awesome.
yeah, but let me get started here and say what initially drew you to character design and just how did you get started?
Yeah, I got started by doing well, first of all, making fun of my teachers in high school, and that led to me drawing for my high school newspaper. And then once I left high school, I started doing caricatures in theme parks. I was going to a junior college just for like a year, and I just couldn't hack it. I realized now as I grew older what my problem was. You know, when you're younger, they never diagnose you with anything. It just wasn't a thing. It's just like, what are you, stupid? And I had, now I have ADHD, and I've known that for years. And it was just very hard for me to concentrate. So academically, I always failed. And then I ended up meeting someone who told me, hey, they're looking for a caricature artist at SeaWorld in San Diego. You should apply. That's what you like to do. And I did, and they hired me. And that's how I got my start in as a professional artist, by doing live caricatures. And then from there, that evolved, and then just showing up to a lot of different meetings, hearing about different cartoonists. And then I met someone who worked at Warner Brothers from a meeting, and I kept in contact with them. And he invited me up to Warner Brothers about a year later from that initial contact. And I met with the directors, and they gave me a test, and then I got hired on a show called Hysteria, and that was back at Warner Brothers in 1997.
Wow, what a cool journey. Do you have any favorite memories or a story that you could share with us while you've just been working in the industry that you can think of by any chance?
I mean, I think the most important thing is it's an industry of just relationships and friendships, and that was the greatest thing. Is you go into these studios, and it's very collaborative, and there's a team of people, and there's a vision, and you're just kind of working together, and everyone's just, for the most part, happy because everyone's just drawing, and everyone's getting paid to draw, right? So, again, there's those frustrations that can happen on a production. There's certain deadlines or workloads that can become a little bit unbearable and frustrating, but for the most part, it's a pretty happy place. Nickelodeon was a real cool studio to work at. Probably the most fun studio I worked at, just because, you guys growing up too, and you're watching Nickelodeon, or when they would do the Nickelodeon award shows and everything, with the slime and the this and the that and the orange and the purples and the greens. And that's what the studio was like. It was just kind of had that type of atmosphere, and it was really creative environment, so it was fun. But the process typically works for what you do is what we all do on the what's called pre-production, where we're doing the character designs, the storyboards, the props, the color, all that sort of thing. Is it starts with the script. You start with the script, and then you start getting a breakdown of what needs to be done, and then you just start drawing, and taking lots of breaks here and there. And being at the Disney lot in Burbank was really cool. That's where Walt Disney did so many feature movies, had his office in the corner of one of the buildings, and you walk down the streets on the campus, and it really is magical. It's just like really, really cool. So, and unfortunately it's changed now. I feel like everything's changed. Times have changed. Pandemic kind of messed a lot of things up, but it's not. It's not the way it used to be, from what I remember. But it was magical at those times.
That's really
Wow, that's
interesting.
amazing. I was also gonna say, thank you so much for sharing your story about how when you were a student, like, you were struggling academically, but you always had a talent that I feel like other people notice, which is where you're able to get that recommendation to go apply for that C-role position. Because
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of students sometimes, like, they go to school and they notice that they are struggling academically compared to other students. And instead of like maybe feeling like maybe their skills could be somewhere else that doesn't have to do with academics necessarily, they instead kind of put themselves down thinking, oh, there's something wrong with me,
right,
maybe I'm not as efficient as other students. But your story is just so inspiring because here you are saying that, like, yeah, maybe as a kid you were struggling academically, but then again here you are also creating things that's inspiring so many more
right.
children.
Yeah,
So it's just like it's like a crazy circle where it's like, just because you're not doing the best at one thing, it doesn't mean that you don't have anything to go off of. And
exactly.
looking at the success you've had now, it's such an amazing humble story where it's like you started off just wondering like where do you fit in,
Yeah,
and you found your place. That's awesome.
yeah. Thanks.
Of
Yeah,
course.
and really quick, I'm just curious. I don't know if there's such a thing as like an average timeline for an animation like season, but is there kind of from what you've just experienced, like how long does it take to get a season of a show? Is there any gauge or?
Yeah. Well, usually on an episode, you could be working on an episode, and that might you'll get a script. Everyone in the department gets different timelines. So if
Okay.
someone's doing on, but as a character designer, some shows I would only get about 2 to 3 weeks most to design the characters for the show, but the storyboard artists might get anywhere from 5 to 6 weeks, right? So you
Okay.
typically it's about, oh, it almost felt like every 2 months there was a turnover of the show before the next script was coming along, and
Okay.
then doing that, and then it gets all the animation for the most part with these studios gets sent overseas where we do all the pre-production, and then they have to animate it. Just the cost of doing it is a lot more affordable for the studio, so they'll send it to, again, it could Vietnam, it could be India, it could be China, it could be anywhere, and Canada, and they'll do the animation there, and then maybe we'll get animation back from that episode maybe about 6 to 8 months later, on that. And every season is different. Now the seasons, when they're doing seasonal shows, they only do about 8 to 10 shows a season anymore now, where sometimes it used to be, hey, we were doing 30 episodes in a season, but everything's just getting smaller now, in the production phase.
Cool. Interesting.
Shorter, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you for that insight. Yeah, I was always curious because I know animation takes a long time, so I just
Yeah, it
wanted to
takes a
ask
long
you.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then it
and
comes back to the studio, and then
right.
they got to do the production aspect of in-house production of, you're doing the voices, the dubbing, the retakes, anything else that needs to be changed
Yeah.
on the animation to fix it. Do we need to send some of the animation back and have them redo it because they didn't do it right? And that's where you're doing what's called the post-production. So we do pre-production in Burbank, and then it goes overseas, and then it comes back and we do the post production.
Oh, cool. What a good breakdown. Yeah, I wasn't too sure about that, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask as well, where did you get the inspiration to create Silver Tunes Inc. and the Silver Drawing Academy? And could you tell us a little bit more about what exactly they are?
Yeah, so the Silvertoons Inc. is a company I started when I was 18 years old because I was working at SeaWorld doing caricatures, and during that time, a lot of people were asking me, hey, do you draw at private events? And so I automatically really had to form a business of doing caricatures, right? So I had to get a license, I had to get a permit. When I set up at public places or where tourists were, I had to get a permit for that. So I had to go through the whole process of setting up a company, and that's what I did when I was 18. So it kind of became my freelance studio name, and so now people can just hire me, and I, turned it into a corporation just from all the work that I get now, and throughout the years of just doing freelance work for different companies and people, and that's what that company is. So it's a cartoon company where, again, it's just me. doing the artwork and everything for anyone that needs it. But part of that Silver Tunes Incorporated is my Silver Drawing Academy, where I've always had a passion and love for teaching, and that's really where my heart and purpose and life is now, is all in teaching. I'm dedicating my life to teaching from this point on through my life. You know, I'm 53 years old this year, and I just want to, that's how I kind of want to go out as a teacher. And that's where I'm putting all my eggs into that. So I started an online academy called the Silver Drawing Academy, where I'm training artists now from all over the world. I did have a physical building, but due to the pandemic, like luckily it was, as it was building up, it wasn't from that, but about 6 months prior, I ended up having to try to find a new place for just complications with my landlord. But it was a good, perfect timing, you know, so I kind of got out of that lease right before the pandemic. And now then I decided during the pandemic, I'm going to open this up worldwide through the online school. So that's what that's afforded me in that sense, is now it's accessible to anyone all over the world to watch videos that I've created. I got like over 400 video lessons on there, all under 5 minutes each, just to teach people, you know, about the business of art, teach people about caricature, character design, gesture, and help them move into the careers that they want to move into.
That's cool. My follow-up to that is, what do you think is the importance of providing these workshops and these videos, like the impact of you doing this?
Yeah, it's just something that giving I got so much knowledge to share, and I think giving that knowledge to people who are up and coming, it's really what they need. People need to,
Right.
it's hard to sometimes just do things on your own, right? If you just, or just get motivated, and that's why doing something like this gives you a community. It gives you a place to sort of visit and be a part of. I meet with the students once a week. On Wednesdays, we do a thing called, and on a Saturday each month, we do a thing called the Drawing Hangout. And we all, whoever wants to join in, we all get together on Zoom, and I create a lesson plan, and we're all just drawing together and chatting, and people can ask any questions. So it's access, you know, and I think that's very important. It's access and accountability. And I think those are two very important things that are important for people in order to just learn and grow. And it's one of the things as an artist, it never stops. There's no off season, you know, for an artist. You gotta, if this is something you really want to do, you gotta just keep drawing. You got to keep working on it. Of course, you're going to take breaks, go on vacations, do what you're going to do, but you can't all of a sudden decide, be in school and go, oh, it's summer break, and now I get 3 months off. I'm not going to draw for 3 months. You're going to go back, and it's not like riding a bike. You know, you're going to be extremely rusty. You're going to be frustrated. But if this is something you're serious about, you got to be serious about it. And so this platform offers the ability just to be a part of something and engage with me as a professional instructor.
That's really cool. Yeah, and on that note, you know, BookBase is all about building communities about books. So let me ask you this. I know you've written books about art techniques and giving tips about art. So how has becoming an author helped you on this journey of inspiring others as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really, I've published now, I've self-published about, I think about 13 or 14 of my own books, just doing it on my own, because when I wanted to do it, going to a publisher to do it, they had all these expectations and all that. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to. I'm just gonna do this on my own. So I went and bought books on how to self-publish books and read all that and did investigating and did all my research, and then started getting into self-publishing and did that, and I found that to be extremely lucrative and just a greater way just to get your stuff out there, because even when you're being published by someone, you still gotta pitch it and sell the book yourself. You know, it's very rare that the publishers they're not in the beginning they'll do a push, but after that it's on your own to keep pushing your own book. So I'm like, well, I'll just keep doing it myself. Sure. And so I did that, and again, it just, what it did for me was it opened up a whole world of people to find me, and I was publishing, my first book was being published before the internet was a thing, before Instagram came around, right? So people were buying my books in bookstores or comic book stores, And then I was getting jobs from that. So people were hiring me based on, hey man, I got your book, and I had my email in there or my contact information, my phone, and people
Right.
could reach out to me. And from there, that's where I was able to get more work. So it built up a base. I was able to now start setting up at conventions and selling books. And then I started selling prints and started doing that. And then eventually I got a book publisher who I believed in, which was a book publisher called Design Studio Press, and they do print a lot of art books, and I really love their books, and I love the quality of their books and what they do. And I proposed my idea to them, and they were interested. They said, "Hey, that's great. We'd love to work with you." And so I worked with them, and now that book has just it's just really it's massive. It's just been printed now. It's going into its fourth language. It's already printed in English, Spanish, Japanese, and now it's going to be printed in Chinese. And it's just growing, and it's used in a lot of schools as their curriculum. It's called the Silver Way, tutorials and techniques on character design, and it's being used in a lot of schools now as for the students to use for that part of their curriculum. And it's expanded its global reach, and even on Amazon there's just like almost 1,000 5-star reviews on it, and it went way beyond my expectations. I just wanted to create something out of passion, out of love. It took me about 5 years to make, but it was like just my heart and what I love and all my experience. And now I just tell people, you got what is it, like 25 years of knowledge in 147 pages of a book that you can have access to. And I think that's the greatest thing about books, is the ability to reach people and connect in a different way. And there's something that's great just about that process.
Wow, thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing all of that. And I think your passion will, I think whenever someone tries to promote something, but it kind of comes off with the intention of like, hey, I just want to share my passion with other people. I think it's like an invisible language that other people just kind of pick up. And I feel
Yeah.
like it allows people to really understand where others are coming from when you speak from the heart.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, even though I may not be in the industry, but I just want to say thank you for creating the academy, because I think a lot of people might think that the entertainment and animation industry may be really closeted and be very hard to get into. But I really agree with what you're saying, where it's like, well, I think the biggest problem is the accountability and the consistency.
Yeah.
Where if you just keep on working on your craft and you keep on developing yourself, it's not really about if you're going to get that chance, but when something happens, are you able to take advantage of it? And the fact that you're promoting this idea where it's like, be consistent, be accountable. I just think that you're creating this mentality where people will just be able to create their craft, be better and better, and if that chance ever happens, they're able to perform at the best that they can. And I'm sure that would speak so much more volume, when they're able to really showcase like, hey, I belong in this industry and here's why. And I think the fact that you have these drawing sessions where you're just drawing, other people are drawing, it
Yeah.
just creates such a healthy community. So thank you. Like, I
Yeah.
just
My
think that's
pleasure.
so great. Yeah, of course. I
Good
think
stuff.
it's good to acknowledge that, because, this is something that I think that, I mean, if I were to become a mentor, I would want to do the same thing. And I think that, especially in times where I feel like people are so divided and there's so much chaos in the world, having a moment where you can just log in and just do drawing and just to focus on a passion,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think just creates a really good sense of clarity and a sense of peace. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you're doing. And I think this kind of leads into our next question. But what advice would you personally give to those that would want to work in the animation industry, or just sort of broaden it out a little bit, maybe the entertainment industry?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to truly just know what it is that you love. Again, it comes down to that passion. What are you most passionate about? Do you love drawing buildings? Do you love telling stories? Do you love drawing characters? Do you love the actual animating? What is it? What area of whatever you're trying to get into do you really love? And just keep pursuing that and just keep working on that and be an observer of life. Draw in your sketchbook, make friends, go sketch together, find the communities to be a part of, do your research, make sure you on social media, right? You got to be on LinkedIn, you got to be on Instagram, you got to just keep your eyes open, all the time, and that's what it is. But don't worry about the outcome. We never know what the outcome of anything's going to be. We start things, we don't know what's going to happen. It's just you're starting something because you have a passion, an idea, and you want to kind of build some form of purpose around it, and you pursue that. And if it works out, awesome. But if not, you'll veer in another way. We don't have to have this all planned out. There doesn't need to be. There's no end story, to any of this. We just don't know. And you find that just through life on the journey, you go on so many different paths and so many different ways, and you just gotta, it's just about being prepared. Are you open-minded, or are you closed-minded? Are you willing to work hard? Are you willing to sacrifice, or are you not? Are you that person that sort of just like freaks out the minute some sort of adversity crosses your path and you can't snap back? Or are you the sort of person that can just go, oh man, that sucked, but let me pursue this now. Let me try this instead. So it's just always just, you just got to keep moving forward. It's just like the blood in our veins, keeps flowing 24 hours a day. And that's what we have to do, is just keep flowing, because we're going to get ghosted. We're going to get, hit. We're going to get rejected. Things aren't going to work out, there's so many different scenarios. But I think if you have a vision or that mindset of where you want to be in the art industry, or any industry, just keep moving. That's what it's all about. Just don't stop and have fun.
Yeah, no, thank you. I definitely do think that the second that you change your mindset from fearing the chance of rejection to making it more of a mindset of acceptance, where it's like, this is going to happen no matter what, it's just a matter of how do I come back from it, I think it does create a healthier mindset to be able to be more resistant to rejection and the ghosting and all of that, and kind of be able to move forward with what you really care about. And I think the last part that you just said is also really important. Like, you got to have fun.
Yeah.
Like, you can do anything
Yeah.
you want, but I feel like those that do it with fun and with joy, it's so much easier to see, and I think it's more preferable.
Yeah.
Especially like, it doesn't even have to be in terms of a job situation, but like, if you have a friend that loves to like do something, and every time you see them do it, they're smiling, they're having a great time doing it, that energy just radiates off of them, and it might even affect how like internalize it. Like, hey, seeing somebody do great at what they do and they're having fun, I want to find something that works for me in the same capacity. And I just think that was just such a great message. And yeah, I think you're right. And I think in general what you're saying is just to be present. Like, don't think too much
Yeah.
about like what's happening in the future, what you messed up on in the past. It's just about like, what can you do right now, and are you willing to just take those baby steps to kind of keep on getting better in today's time.
It is, absolutely. It's about being present, and it's also all just about perception. If you were to
Right.
put it into another word, how do you perceive this situation that's just been presented to me? Are you gonna freak out as if the world's coming to an end, or are you gonna be like, interesting. Let me see if there's something else I can do or adjust or change, right? And I think that's the sort of mindset to have. It's a very, in a sense, a stoic philosophy. I love
Mhm.
stoicism. I read a lot of it. I listen to a lot of podcasts on it. I believe in that ideology, and it's just about really controlling your mind, and it's about surrendering. To a lot. It doesn't mean giving up. It means just surrendering, and like you mentioned, acceptance
Right.
to whatever that situation may be, and finding that way around it. And that's the important thing to always consider.
That's great how you mentioned Stoicism. By chance, have you read Meditations by Marcus
I have.
Aurelius?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually have that on my reading list. I
Nice.
know that's a very important book, and when I first read about like the background of that book, I was really into it. And I think Stoicism is definitely a very important form of like behavior, because what I really love about it is the mindset that it's not necessarily about controlling your environment; it's about controlling yourself in any environment.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
just think that's such a beautiful outlook on life, because I think it allows a lot more opportunities to practice self-love, where if there's moments where you're just really stressed out and stuff, it's okay to pull yourself back and kind of say, hey, what's going on inside, instead of wondering like, hey, what can I do outside to fix
Exactly.
everything. That's awesome.
And
Thank you so much.
I just want to say real quick too, that advice is pretty universal. Like, that's not exclusive to art or
Yeah,
entertainment industry. So
sure.
you sharing that is really cool. And I thought you were talking to me too. When you were just talking to I'm like, man, Steven knows a lot about my life right now. How does he it's just so relatable.
Again,
So
it's a big, it is, it's a universal
it really,
message,
yeah.
right? It really applies. It's all one thing. We're all on this, sitting on this globe, this little round ball floating in the middle of
Yeah.
space,
Right.
spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. So, we're all here in the same, we're on the same boat. So again, it's that oneness of idea. And like you mentioned with the stoicism, it's not about changing your environment, and reacting to that. It's about changing yourself within that environment. I think the more people grab onto that and understand that, then they can really make things happen, and do things and not be so willing to give up so fast, where a lot of
Right.
people do. They'll give up very quickly because of that fear of reject. Most people won't even try something for fear of rejection or the
Yeah.
fear that it just won't work out. One of my favorite quotes is by Mark Twain, and he said, "I've had many problems in my life, many of which have never occurred." Right? So there's a lot of people, we create these scenarios, these problems, and then, well, that didn't happen. Why did I stress myself out? Why did I get so, crazed over that? So those are
Right.
things to really consider.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually crazy because I took a class one time when I was in university. It was a sociology class that talked about the process of aging. And I read an article about like the top 10 things that people say on their deathbed.
Oh
And one
yeah,
of the highest messages that people said universally before they died was, I wish I took that chance.
yeah,
And I just think that when people start realizing that you only live one life, you start understanding that, like, wait a minute, like, if you're gonna live, once, you might as well live a life that you feel confident that, hey, I went for something and, like, it's truly me. It speaks unto who I am as a person. And I just think that's great. And, speaking of, people, what's in the future for you, Steven? Like, what do you have planned that you have in the future? Is there anything that you have going on that you're excited about?
yeah. First, I just want to mention, just with that, that's something I've quoted many times. You can find it on the internet for your viewers to look at. It's called "The Top 10 Regrets of the Dying," and
Hmm.
it was written by a hospice nurse and nurses when they're. So there's almost a science to it. So
Right.
all these people on their deathbeds were saying the same thing. These top 10 regrets, and you read that and you realize, wow, if they're all saying that, there's got to be truth to that. I wish I didn't let other people tell me how to live my life, sort of thing. I wish I wouldn't have worked as hard as I did. There's all these different, things you hear and you go, wow, well, those are what people are saying on their deathbed. It's probably pretty accurate, and true, and they say it over and over again. So if anyone wants to check that out, yes, the top 10 regrets of the dying. Um, and for me, like I mentioned, my whole purpose now, I'm dedicating my life to teaching,
Hmm.
and I'm actually in the process of possibly becoming a full-time professor at Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD, out in Savannah, Georgia, where it's a lifestyle that I really thrive in, that I enjoy, and it's something where I may be moving out there to start doing that and start hitting the reset button and just starting a whole new, different life. Continue my online academy, have my online school still, teach full time, as a professor at the school, just impacting students. That's my goal. I just want to impact people's lives now. That's
Right.
sort of what I want to do. I don't have anything that I'm trying to say or do anymore. I don't need, I'm not trying to make paintings to sell at a gallery. I'm not trying to build this uh, voice about myself. I know that my voice and my, real heart is in the teaching and that knowledging, and that's where I want to make an impact. And I think it's kind of like the cycle of an artist. I feel is, in the beginning, you're learning, you're thriving, you're growing, and then you get to a level where now you're being accepted in a professional world, and you can start making a professional career, and you start doing that. And then that circle is, well, now that you've gained all this knowledge and learned all that, are you taking that to your grave with you, or are you going to start just sharing that knowledge with other people, to enjoy, and embrace, like I have when I find other people's books, that are no longer on this planet that I can learn from because they left a message, and that's what I want to do, is just leave a message behind, for all the people that are interested in learning or listening.
Right. No, of course. Thank you so much for bringing up the article and also sharing those words. And I actually think it's really interesting how you're so excited to hit the reset button because I feel like a lot of people would hear that and they'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yeah,
reset. Like,
panic. Yeah,
but you're starting all over. But
yeah,
I think that there's a lot of beauty behind just being like, hey, you know what? This chapter is concluding
yeah,
and you kind of found a future, passion, which is teaching for you. And you're like, hey, this is okay. Like, I'm willing to just move and just do
absolutely.
what you really care about.
Yeah,
And I definitely sense that inner peace that you've talked about when we talk about stoicism. I just think that's such a great outlook to have in life.
yeah,
And thank you so much for sharing everything. And I agree with you about literature and how there's so many messages in books. Like since the beginning of mankind, I feel like literature has always been something that's been consistently passed down, whether it's drawings on the walls back to when cavemen existed, to now, we look at libraries just filled of books. Messages have always been something that we've universally been able to just share and
yeah.
spread across, the world. And this kind of leads to us to our last question. What do you think is important about socializing around books? Because I feel like in today's time, I feel like with technology and everything, I feel like sometimes people see reading as an isolated experience. But with BookBase, we really try to push the social aspect of it. And I just wanted to ask if you've ever been in a book club or if you've ever read a book with somebody that you feel like, and you talk to them about it and you feel like you gained more from that experience, or if you just have a personal opinion on that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the social aspect is huge. You know, we're social animals. You know, we need to interact with each other. I think that's what brings out the joy, within people by having that. And so the more you can do that, I always encourage people to join just like art clubs. To join together where everyone's hanging out and drawing. Speaking of books, I used to part of my art club before I got into animation with my friends, we would always go to the bookstores, to go draw and hang out. We went to Barnes and Noble and the other bookstores when they were all around, and we'd all go and we'd get coffee, get a table, and we'd grab books off the shelves to draw from, more picture books. But that social aspect is huge, so it's vital. And then with books, I've never been part of any book clubs per se, other than I read, lots of books, a lot of philosophy books. Again, I love philosophy. I'm not a fiction guy. I love to hear stories. But I love watching documentaries. I love learning about people's lives, their journeys, because it helps me understand a lot about just the world and life in general. So I'm typically always sharing those books with people. Oh, you got to read that. And then some people, then they end up reading it and go, oh, yeah, I read that book. And then we can talk about the book and we're on the same, page. And then I was just like, I'd follow when Oprah was doing her book club. Back in the day, there was a guy named, it was still around, Eckhart Tolle, and he wrote several books. He was on Buddhist philosophy, and I was just really just I wasn't watching it on the TV, on the web. He had their book club, so every week there was a new session where everyone should then talk and discuss the book, which is cool. So I love that social aspect, and again, makes it so that you're not alone, and that's the thing that's so nice about when you're an artist. A lot of times you are drawing by yourself on your own, doing your own thing, especially a freelance artist. But when you work at a studio, it's a social environment to where now you're working and collaborating and working with everyone technically on the same book, the same project, where there's something magical about that. So when you get a book club together, when you create that social aspect, again, I think it's just a way for community to get together and share what they have, and I meet lots of people who, especially at the LA Times Book Fair, I talk to a lot of people who are in their own little book clubs. Yeah, we read a book each week and we all get together and discuss it, and I think it's really cool. I think it's important.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And I totally understand where you're coming from with reading stories and understanding, like real life, messages because Elise and I were really big into biographies. And we've had moments where it's like, we're reading a book on Benjamin Franklin and we stay up till 3 in the morning talking
Yeah.
about like what the heck is going on with this guy just thinking the way that he does. So I do think that, when it comes to those types of books, like there's so much value just sharing stories
Yeah.
and universal messages that have been passed on through the years. So thank you so much
And
for everything. Thank you for sharing
let me just
your
say
writing.
real quick too, because you said this to Stephen with your book, where you said like 25 years of experience, or just your lifetime
Yeah,
written in like these pages. That's the way that I saw biographies for the longest time as well, just because it's like there's a human being out there that has lived or is living, and they lived a totally different life, but there's always something to learn from that. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of the value of like a, biography that I always saw when it comes to these types of books, because you never realize, like Benjamin Franklin, just for example, that Nathan said, you never realize, like, oh yeah, like relatable or something, right? But when you
Yeah.
go into someone's life, you're just kind of like, wait, I kind of think like that, or I had an experience, and you can kind of relate in some way, just because a human's lifetime, there's a lot of things you can pick up and learn from. But just wanted to add that quick note because you mentioned that as well,
Yeah.
Stephen. But yeah, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much again, Stephen, for being here. Again, for those that are watching this episode, if you guys want to follow Stephen's journey, please check out his Instagram at StephenSilver7, as well as his website, www.silverdrawingacademy.com. But Stephen, again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And yeah, go read books.